Sorry, excuse me. Okay, so I put this off for years. I wanted to do a 15-minute book review video of one of my favorite novels of all time, The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. It's in my top 10 books list for sure. It's up there with like Watership Down, The Stand, The Lord of the Rings, my favorite books of all time. It's just there's so much. Now I'm not gonna lie. I tried making this video review before, and it sucked. I gushed over the book too much. It got too emotional, and I felt like it was cringe. And maybe I'll maybe I'll upload it some other time. But anyways, I wanted to make a more simple, nuanced book review video and just get down to the nitty gritty. So, anyways, not that the internet really needs my thoughts on this book. I mean, it's already a huge sensation in the fantasy genre. It's got diehard fans for a reason. It's one of those popular books that earns its. I don't feel like I'm hopping on a bandwagon. I still feel like it's unique enough. Anyway, it's earned its fame truly through just being pure quality. So basically, The Name of the Wind is the story of a young bard whose family is killed by some evil dimension hopping dark magic users, and he's fueled. His life is thrown into poverty and turmoil and this insatiable desire for knowledge to get revenge and also just survive and find meaning in the world. And he's driven by love, desire, passion. He's driven by the desire for power, knowledge, status in society, and also just survival. And so there's a lot of conflict in the book. There's a lot of angst, and but also all those other themes, particularly of young men, is just eternally nostalgic. And it's coming from such a universally relatable place from the author. I think Pat Rothfuss like stretched out his bachelor's degree for like 9 years just because he loved learning different things so much, and that really shows in the novel. For example, I forgot to mention this is a qualifies as like a dark fantasy academia book. A lot of the same plot elements that would attract a general audience can be found in things like Harry Potter that are almost intentionally generic and somewhat satirical, but the weight of the book gets people to stay, and that's what makes it memorable, so to say. Like all those little details. And one example of that is just the believability, the weight of the world. It perfectly homages the feelings of angst, obscurity, the slowness of life. It actually feels like it comes from a medieval time. It's like very castle-y. I don't know how to explain. And it all just does feel like a very enchanting experience without trying too hard, like a less is more type of situation. Like I don't really, it's hard to explain, but the thing that makes The Name of the Wind so memorable to me, it's so compelling against so many other books in the fantasy genre that it's always about some big, epic, pulp-laden plot or quest to defeat the Dark Lord or save the universe or save the world or avenge some fallen kingdom or something or defeat the demons. It's like sure, there's a little bit of good versus evil in here, but overall, it's very much about the journey, not the destination. It's very much it's kind of like a slice of life, less is more quality, where charm has more weight in hindsight than pulp. And this is one of the first books that really turned me on to that idea. And I would say this qualifies as literary fantasy and epic fantasy together. So it's a lot of unoriginal, intentional tropes, but it's like a love letter to these tropes, coming of age tropes, fantasy tropes, like the whole dead parents, orphan thing, and a million others. Like, but it's done with such fidelity and authenticity that comes from pure passion from the heart of the author, which shows in all the artistic details and presentation. That it basically just is a very immersive experience that makes the more subtle, charming magic and character nuances so much more impactful and memorable. So Patrick Rothfuss is a masterful prose writer, and He was dedicated to the world building. He would take aspects of real life laws of physics to engineer fantasy magic systems upon that were kind of boring and intentionally, but made everything feel so much more like it had weight. Like he made the idea of boring chemistry classes interesting in this world through the juxtaposition of the fantasy, generally speaking, and things like that. So um, basically, this is also just a love letter to life. It's just a work of pure passion, um, and there's something that just feels so fearlessly authentic and personal coming from the author, and it's so much more of a memorable and real experience for that. I'm trying not to give anything away, but this isn't one of those books that you read for the plot. You read it to feel this cozy, nostalgic feeling of what it's like to adventure and to fall in love, and the bitterness of having like rivals with your peers when your pride matters so much at that at in the age of the really rough time period is when from like your teens to your 20s, where you're finding out who you are and the decisions you make in life are going to determine where you end up. And the dichotomy between the past and present in like the prologue and how the story's set up just builds also a ton of mystery and intrigue of how this character got there. So you've got like extremely believable, realistic, relatable viewpoint character with a really fascinating, memorable, grounded yet unique, balanced personality that just has so much more believability and charm. It's just like Quoth, the main character Quoth, is very ordinary to have some weighted realism to him, but also he's a pretty good role model because he does adopt more and more heroism as time goes on, but he also has a lot of blind, prideful stupidity and impulsivity that gets ironed out through making mistakes. And so, all in all, it's hard to describe why I love The Name of the Wind so much. It's just a culmination of so many little details that play off of each other to make an experience that you can escape into with really good, subtle, sometimes deadpan humor. And if I had to describe it in one sentence, it would just be three words: less is more. Not that makes it. Maybe I shouldn't use it. No, like yeah, less is more because although it doesn't lack world building details, it's focusing on the delivery, making it so immersive. And that's, as a hobbyist fiction writer myself, that's the greatest lesson this book has taught me. Having read it 10 years ago, one of the books in college that got me back into reading, and one of the reasons I ended up basically flunking out of college because I was reading books like this instead of boring medical texts and realizing the medical world is corrupt and I didn't want to be a part of it. Long story short, and having a sort of quarter life crisis 10 years ago in college, and then reading it now 10 years later and reflecting back, it's like I see how this is one of those books that shaped so much of my life, even though I have not lived a conventional life. I've kind of lived like this character without intending to, but that's just kind of what happened. I'm not here to talk about myself too much or tell my life story or anything, but I don't really have any regrets because I did what I feel driven to do, and that's still an evolving thing. And that plays into the larger theme that's in the title. The Name of the Wind is something with the magic system known as naming the characters trying to unlock, but I believe it has multiple other deeper connotations, that many allusions to many universally relatable themes in life, like meaning itself. The book poetically and rather pretentiously, in a way that I find charming, describes silence. Silence in the beginning and ending pages as a way of demonstrating exactly what I've been talking about, like what makes it stand out. It knows its quality. It is utterly and totally itself, so it doesn't have to oversell itself. Um, it's just kind of a perfect work of art. and not many books can say the same. It's like a masterclass in style for good storytelling, and not just confined to the fantasy genre, but just fiction in general. I think it's like should I think it will be periodically rediscovered in future centuries and looked back upon as a book that will is best read earlier in life by probably young future college students, probably particularly men. I wouldn't say it's particularly male centric, but it doesn't shy away from a lot of the primal passions that help men find their way in their younger, more turbulent hormonal years, shall we say. And so anybody who's turned off to that, it's not going to appeal to everybody in how they define morals and things like sexuality and responsibility regarding that and whatnot. But who cares? It's a freaking fiction book. I'm saying that because I people love to hate on anything that's popular and just to have feel like they got clout and have something to say. But I mean, I wouldn't have a lot of the same moral perspectives as characters in this book, but I love the characters nonetheless because they're realistic and relatable and immersive and funny, and they have layers, and every corridor and every place in this world feels so much personality, so lived in, so storied. The backstory lore with the prophets and everything is just so good. It's so believable and dark as well. There's a lot of dark, frightening magic in here. It lacks. It somehow feels like a genuine fairy tale and charming, but it lacks none of the seriousness of a more hardcore, like R-rated experience. So this is one of those books that perfectly can appeal to all ages. Probably for your children, not necessarily, especially not the second book. I wouldn't necessarily recommend, but a given studious child who has a big imagination and discovers this book, it might just be a defining life experience that helps them emulate good qualities in the story and characters that could make them more successful in the long run. It really does have a lot of universal quality moral themes, and that comes down to the character and the author being a genuinely good person. So, in any case, it's overall this is one of those books that it always will stay in your memories as when you'll read so many great best-selling commercial fiction and it all just kind of feels the same. Once in a while, something that has original elements that all come together like a master craftsmanship or a magician's experience. You see one thing and they're doing all these things beneath the surface to make a better, more engaging experience for you because of the artistry of the stylization and the details. And that has proven in hindsight for me personally to be more memorable than hundreds of other books I've read in the past. So I guess the bottom line is personality sells. Personality matters. And you don't have to conform to any, as a writer or creator, creative content creator of any kind in any medium, any type of content of any medium, if you're a creative person and you're trying to engineer a product to sell, if it's a novel or whatever, you don't have to, you can do something that's the most boring thing ever, and if you do it genuinely and authentically, and that spirit of the hype that you feel for your craft and the things you like will carry over and find an audience. And this book is living proof of that and its success. And altogether, I'm just so grateful for it. It's a perfect 10 out of 10 for me. It's one of my favorite books of all time. It's not gonna it being so low key in spirit and pace is not gonna appeal to everybody, but it baptized me, so to say, to slow burn, like less is more, slice of life elements in fantasy, and ultimately it's probably going to stay on my top 10 books of all time, favorite books of all time for my whole life, because it's reading this book for the first time was one of the best things I've ever experienced in my life. And maybe I have some bias because I relate in personality to the character quite a lot in many ways, but Anyways, that's about more than you ever needed to know from me. That's my review of Pat Rothfuss's Name of the Wind from 2007. Thanks.